Today I'm reading from the Hermetica, Chapter 3, The Being of Atum. So this is the commentary first, and then the actual words of Hermes will come later. God is oneness. Everything is a part of the one supreme being. Redundant statement. Everything is a part of the one supreme being. Everything is a part of the one supreme being if you say so. I like how I say everything is one. Everything is God. I and God are one. But there's no me to be one with God. There's no me to be one with it. The idea that there is a me to be one with God is an illusion, because the whole time God has been one. So it's like if I think that like me, like just the individual me exists, then I'm just separated in an illusion. And as long as I want to believe that illusion is real, then I can. But it's like, just say I and God are one. Who and God is one? It's just God that is one. Everything is God, right? Everything is God. There are no things in the actual universe, if you want. There are no actual things. Everything is a part of the one. If there's parts of it, and if there are things, then it's not one. But there has to. It's just a figure of speech to say everything. You know, a thing is a think. A thing is a think. When you think about something, then you make it a thing. But in reality, you can never separate me from my background, nor my background from me. You can never separate me from my world, nor the world from me. Everything exists in correspondence to the one ultimate flowing source. There could be no differences. There could be no things within the actual one universe. There is only the one God. There is only the one Atum. There is only the one universe. So it's like we say everything is one. There are no things to be one. There's no I to be. There is no I to think that I am not God. There's just God. When you become enlightened, it's like you can't become enlightened, nor can you not. You can't do anything to become enlightened, nor can you not do anything to become enlightened. And it's like when you become enlightened, it's the most difficult thing to explain, because it's just the way it is now. So it's not you don't do nor do you not do. Like, you're the same as everything. You just come to that realization that you're the same, that there's no difference between you and the world that you exist in. It's all been one. So you've always been the same thing, and that's what you realize. It's like you see people walking by, and you see the trees blowing, and you get the feeling, and you just have the knowing, right? When you're enlightened, when it's clear to you, you have the knowing and the feeling that I'm doing this, but you don't think you're God. If someone has this experience and then thinks they're God, then they just don't know how to interpret it. But it's the way it is. It's just you're not separate from it. It's all you. It's just all one ocean. And this is the words of Hermes. The being of Atum. Give me your whole awareness and concentrate your thoughts. For the knowledge of Atum's being requires deep insight, which comes only as a gift of grace. It is like a plunging torrent of water, whose swiftness outstrips any man who strives to follow it, leaving behind not only the hearer, but even the teacher himself. To conceive of Atum is difficult. To define him is impossible. The imperfect and the impermanent cannot easily apprehend the eternally perfected. So to conceive of Atum is difficult. To define him is impossible. Because how can you define the only thing that there is? You couldn't. You couldn't. You, you only define uh, thoughts. You only define things, aspects of the one. How could you define the one thing that there is? It would need an outside. It would need a border, and then outside of that border, there could be another. But the border is just arbitrary, so there's always one. There can never be. But then, if it's always one, then it's nothing, because it's no thing. Because to have a thing, you need a definitive. You need another thing in contrast to that thing. But if there's only one, then there's none. There's no thing. So to conceive of Atum is difficult. To conceive of nothing, it's very difficult. It takes a very trained mind. But then to define him, could you ever define? You couldn't define the only thing that there is, because in order to define something, you would need something in relation to that, and you couldn't define nothing. Atum is whole and constant. In himself, he is motionless. Because how could the only thing that there is have motion? Yet he is self-moving. Get it? How could the only thing that there is have motion? There could never be motion. If you're the only thing, if you're the nothing, right? God is nothing. It's like, oh, don't be discourteous to God, but that's actually very courteous. It's like nothing is the best thing. I realized today, I was thinking about it. The only, if it exists, if it's the way it is, that, like, say, like, I create my reality. There's no way around that. If that's the way, then I can't complain, because if it's the way, then it's the greatest. If it exists, then it's the greatest thing. It couldn't be any other way. So if anything exists, if any order of the universe is that order, then it's the greatest order, as it is, because it couldn't be any other way. So it's the greatest. There's no better way than Atum, than God. There's no better way than it. Than the universe than its laws, and yet he is self-moving. He is immaculate, incorruptible, and everlasting. Yeah. Nothing, immaculate, incorruptible, and everlasting. Nothing has no time. There is no beginning nor end to the universe or to God, because how there could never be a beginning nor end to nothing. He is the supreme absolute reality. He is filled with ideas which are imperceptible to the senses, because his mind is, we're in the image of his mind. And with all-embracing knowledge, Atum is the primal mind. He is too great to be called by the name Atum. He is hidden, yet obvious everywhere. His being is known through thought alone, yet we see his form before our eyes. He is bodiless, yet embodied in everything. Yes. Yes. But it's then, again, just the thinking part. He is bodiless, yes, yet embodied in everything. Okay, so if we think about things being actual things, what is a thing? Could you ever separate a thing from the rest of the world? If you can't separate a so-called thing from its environment, then obviously the thing and its environment are one. So you can't say there are any things in actual reality. Yet, he is embodied in everything. Well, we say that because that's just the way we think, that there are actual, like, everything, all the things. He's correct. But we don't have to say he is embodied in everything. He is bodiless, yet he is all the body. I think that would be more correct. There is nothing which he is not. And then it trips me out. How would anyone, like, you could never not be with God. So it's like you just drive yourself crazy trying to separate yourself from him. And then eventually just come back. He has no name because all names are his name. He is the unity in all things. Again, the unity in all things. There are no things to be unified. Lightning, that was him. So we must know him by all names and call everything Atum. He is the root and source of all. Everything has a source, except the source itself. Yeah, it's like the question, like, where does God come from? Where does he come from? Where does nothing come from? It's only our ideas of this dimension that we think things come from somewhere, that they have an origination. But then when you go to the state, that's the primal state, you realize it's like nothing. It's no thing. So there's no beginning nor end, nor place for it to come from. But then how does nothing come into being? But nothing is not in being, but it is. So how? Where does nothing come from? What a redundant question. Where does nothing come from? Where does God come from? A redundant question. There is no where from which God to come. There is no place outside of God from which it comes, from which the ultimate, the absolute comes. So to ask that question is completely redundant. Like our language. He is the root and source of all. Except the source itself, which springs from nothing. Correct. Everything has a source except the source itself, which springs from nothing. But nothing is the source. The source and nothing aren't different. The source springs from nothing, yes, if we think there's a form. But nothing is the source of everything. It couldn't be any other way. It's like, how do I see these words on this page? It's because there's a white paper underneath it. So there needs nothing. There needs emptiness for there to be something. And then how can you cling to nothing? I thought about it last night. Or no, today. I was just going over my ideas for the world, and I was like, it's funny. We try to cling to nothing. And then when we experience the state of actual nothingness, when we can't cling to any thoughts, where we can't cling to any body, where we can't cling to anything, where it's just nothing. My God is the scariest thing because we have nothing to cling to. And it's like, our society needs to figure out how not to cling. How do you not cling? We're so used to clinging. And then clinging is the thing that actually drives us from the thing we're trying to cling on to. Atum is complete, like the number one. Correct. Atum is complete, like the number one. What about zero? If it's one, it's none. So if it's one, it's zero. There can't be a dit with no da. See that lightning? I saw it. Just now. One is the same thing as zero. That's why ones and zeros with the computer coding, 1 and a 0 is really the same thing. Because if there's only one, then there's none, which remains itself, whether multiplied or divided, yet the greatest of all numbers. Atum is the whole, which contains everything. He is one, not two. All, not many. Then all, the word all, right? I'm not saying this is wrong, but the word all implies that there's many things to be the collective of an all. Like our language implies, I think all the words in our language implies separate things, except for one, or non-dual. All, yeah. When you hear all, at least our society, our culture thinks all of the things. Our, but it's like, how does our, if there are separate things that are independent of themselves, if a thing actually exists and it's independent of itself, which is the definition of a thing. If it's a thing, then it's independent of itself. But if it's dependent on other things, then it's not a thing because it's an aspect of the one that it's dependent on, which is the whole God. But if it is a thing, then that implies that it is in fact independent of anything. So our language determines this, and it's like, if you think things actually exist, then how do you explain relationship? It's like the whole philosophy, like the whole like Greek philosophy with Zenoth, with like if an arrow is if an arrow is moving, it's nowhere. But if it's nowhere, if it's in no particular place, it's just like we measure the world in terms of our whatever. The all is not many separate things, but the oneness that subsumes the parts. Yeah, that's a good way of saying it in English. But the oneness that subsumes the parts, subsumes. The all and the one are identical. We just have to say it, right? Because our language. You think that things are many when you view them as separate. Here we go. But when you see that they all hang on the one and flow from the one, you will realize that they are united, linked together. They are connected by a chain of being from the highest to the lowest, all subject to the will of Atum. The cosmos is one, as the sun is one. The moon is one, and the earth is one. Do you think that there are many gods? That's absurd. God is one. Atum alone is the creator of all that is immortal, all that is mutable. If it seems incredible, if that seems incredible, just consider yourself. It's just the way it is. It couldn't be any other way. You see, speak, hear, touch, taste, walk, think, and breathe. It is not difficult, or it is not a different you, which does various things. Oh, the one being who does them all. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. This is my first time reading this. This is the shit I was talking about. It's like there's no you to be in God. To understand how Atum makes all things, consider a farmer sowing seeds. Here wheat, there barley, now planting a vine, then an apple tree. Just as the same man plants all these seeds, so Atum sows immortality in heaven and change on earth. The same man plants all these seeds, all these different aspects of the farm, of the one farm that there is. It could never not be. There could never not be being, but then there could never not be not being. So it's non-dual, and we think in duality. There's good and bad. There's being and not being, but it's in the middle. It's non-category, beyond the categories. Nothing. Non-dual. So Atum sows immortality in heaven and changeling. Throughout the cosmos, he disseminates life and movement, the two great elements that comprise Atum and his creation. And so everything that is throughout the cosmos, he disseminates life and movement, the two great elements that comprise Atum and his creation. So everything that is. Atum is called Father because he begets all beings. And from his example, the wise hold begetting children in the most sacred pursuit of human life. Atum works with nature, within the laws of necessity, causing extinction and renewal, consistently creating creation, to display his wisdom. Yet the things that the eye can see are mere phantoms and illusions. Only those things invisible to the eye are real. Wow. So it's like the opposite nowadays. and Hermes said that the unwise would laugh at the wise, and the wise would be considered fools. And it's like the wise, if you're wise, you know that the things that are not seen are the real things, but then the things that are seen is the illusion. It's like the opposite. And like the whole of science, the whole of the entirety of science is studying what's real, what you can see, what you can see and sense with your instruments. But the things you can see and sense with your instruments are the things that are not real, are the things that are illusion. It's a mere phantom and illusion. But then the things that you can't see, the thoughts and ideas are the real things, and then you incarnate them into the illusion. So it's like, like if you zoom into an atom or into a particle, it's like you go into the particle and say like the nucleus of an atom is the size of a dime, and then the next electron circling the atom is, there's like a cathedral, the size of a cathedral space. It's a molecule, sorry. For the nucleus of a molecule, it's the size of a dime, and then the rest of this, there's empty space between it, which is the proportionate to the size of a cathedral, and then the electrons circle the nucleus. But then if it's an atom, imagine an atom, size of a dime, the next electron would be all the way in like miles away. Would be literally miles away. So it's like and everything else is empty space. It's nothing. It's no thing. So, and then we know, like, do we not learn this in school? That the more you go down into matter, the more you find that there's nothing, that there's no fundamental particles to matter, that there's nothing actually. You can keep going like a limit in mathematics. You just keep going, and then you never get to the y-axis. You just keep going exponentially, and you never get to the y-axis. You just keep getting closer and closer and closer, but you never get there. That's matter. It's like the universe's numbers. It's ones and zeros. It's a computer game. And so it's like what we think is real, what the thinkers of nowadays think that the things we can see are the real things, anything else is not reality. But they're actually the idiots. And the smart ones are the ones who actually know the things beyond, the things that can never be spoken are the real ones, are the real things. Yeah, only those things invisible to the eye are real. Above all are the ideas of beauty and goodness. Just as the eye cannot see being of Atum, so it cannot see these great ideas. They are attributes of Atum alone, and they are inseparable from him. They are so perfectly without blemish that Atum is in love with them. Nothing is imperfect. Nothing itself is imperfect. That's what it means. The attributes, above all, are the ideas in the mind of God. The whole of the Hermetic tradition is actually the birthing of the Christian religion, which is the one true religion of Christianity. Well, what they say is the one true religion. But however, I believe that all religions are different ways of seeing the same thing, obviously. So uh, it's like maybe Christianity is like the most basic thing, but Christianity is based off of the Hermetica, and so it's like above all are the ideas, and okay, so the whole thing in this philosophy is that it's the mind of God, that everything is the mind of God. It's the mind. It's what is that philosophy called? Um, Idealism. Yes, it's correct. It's the mind of God, but also your mind is God too. But except there's no you to be the mind of God. There's just the mind of God. So what you say to be you is actually an aspect of the mind of God. So your mind is actually the mind of God as well. And your mind couldn't exist without the mind of God. So what does that mean? There's a secret conspiracy between the two, which means that the two are the one. The two are the one anyways. And just to separate the two is an illusion based on words, based on just the words we speak. So Maya is play, illusion, art. Maya is what the majority of the population is spellbound by. Is you can hypnotize someone just by speaking words. Just by speaking words to them, you can hypnotize them. And they don't even know they're being hypnotized. Am I hypnotizing you? And so the majority of the population is hypnotized by words, spellbound, right? The government does a great job at this. You can brainwash people just by talking. And Maya, the illusion, when you wake up from the illusion, from the illusion of thinking that the world is just something, is just nothing. It's like when you wake up, it's like, holy shit, the world is so much different. Reality is so much different than what they all think. So when you wake up from the word illusion, from thinking that the world is the way you think, constructed by words. And so it's like that's the illusion, right? It's the Maya, the illusion. But it's all the mind of God, including you. That's what you are, and that's what you got to realize. It's not that you and God are one, but it's just God, and that you are. That existence itself couldn't exist without God. Existence itself is God. There's not. Existence itself is God. That's how profound it is. Only these things invisible to the eye are real. I've already said this. So everything is so perfect without blemish. Even the imperfect things are perfect. Everything. All the ideas in the mind of God. All the ideas in the mind of God are it's just a reality that we see. But then you can perceive it in terms of the words you speak, in terms of the English language. But the English language is like a dead, lifeless language just meant to describe the world. But when you go back in history, like Middle English was a little better, and then Old English was better, and then Anglo-Saxon, Proto-Indo-European, which I'm slacking on learning, but Latin was great. I'm learning Latin, and I'm very good at Latin, at the basics. Those languages, if you think in terms of them, they have life, and they actually have meaning, and they actually they don't just describe things for how they are, like just the forms. We changed the English language to be able to describe the forms of the world. It's an analytical, scientific language. But other languages are languages for life, are meaningful languages. So that's why we need to stop teaching people English, because the language is being reduced and reduced and reduced. And if people don't wake up from the illusion of Maya, then they're going to be thinking in terms of the language, and then seeing the world in terms of the language. And then they're not going to see the world for how it is, but they're going to see the world for a dead, bleak universe, just the way that all the pessimists and the people who are not awake see it. Then when you stop perceiving the world in terms of words, then that's when you wake up to the way the world really is. There is nothing which Atum lacks, so nothing that he desires. There is nothing that Atum can lose, so nothing can cause him grief. Exactly. Realize your unity, the unity. So there's nothing you can lose, nor nothing that can cause you grief. Atum is everything. Atum makes everything, and everything is a part of Atum. Atum, therefore, makes himself. This is Atum's glory. He is all creative. And this creating is his very being. His very being is creating. His very being is creation. So it's like you're made in the image of God. What does that mean? If God's only being is creation, what does that mean if you're made in the image of that? That you create everything. And it's like our pride gets in the way and we say, oh, I don't create everything because my life's not the way I want it to be. Well, it's always the way you want it to be. It's literally always, so you can never complain. It's like people who say that just don't want to take responsibility for their lives. They just don't want to take responsibility for the fact that, like, I'm not doing what I should be doing. Yeah, I only know that. How do I only know that? It takes one to know one. But then in knowing that, you change. It is impossible for him to ever stop creating. It is impossible for him. It's impossible for you to stop creating. You always create. There's nothing that you don't create. For Atum can never cease to be. Atum is everywhere. Mind cannot be closed. Because everything exists within mind, nothing is so quick and powerful. Just look at your own experience. Imagine yourself in any foreign land, and quick as your intention. You will be there. Think of the ocean, and there you are. Think of the ocean, and there you are. There you are! Think of anything. You have not moved as things move, but you have traveled nevertheless. Fly up into heaven. You won't need wings. Nothing can obstruct you. Not the burning heat of the sun or the swirling planets. Pass on the limits of creation. Do you want to break out beyond the boundaries of the cosmos? For your mind, even that is possible. Can you sense what power you possess? If you can do all this, then what about your creator? Try and understand that Atum is mind. This is how he contains the cosmos. All things are thoughts, which the creator thinks. And I think that's enough for today.